A quiet morning breaks over a seemingly peaceful suburban street. The traffic light methodically shifts from green to red. An old pickup truck rolls slowly through the desolate intersection. A man named Lee steps out, completely unaware of the impending doom. It is day one of the apocalypse. Inside a local convenience store, a shopkeeper listens intently to a breaking news broadcast. Lee walks through the aisles, casually picking up some fresh oranges. The television screen displays terrifying images of a recently bombed city. Lee stares at the screen, his face twisted in utter confusion. The anxious locals murmur quietly about distant explosions and unknown casualties. Lee steps back out into the quiet street, his heart beginning to race. He makes his way over to a crowded local baseball field. His wife, Evelyn, is smiling warmly as she plays with their children. Lee exchanges a cheerful high five with his young son. He takes a seat in the bleachers, settling in for the exciting game. He chats casually with his deaf daughter, Regan. He carefully slices an orange, handing her a sweet piece. Evelyn watches the young batter, whispering for him to take a deep breath. The sharp crack of the wooden bat echoes loudly through the park. The enthusiastic crowd erupts into thunderous applause. Suddenly, a strange and terrifying noise draws the attention of the spectators. A man in the stands stands up, his eyes widening in pure terror. The players on the baseball field stop dead in their tracks. They all look up at the burning sky. A deafening roar tears through the fragile atmosphere. Someone in the crowd screams for everyone to run. Absolute chaos engulfs the bleachers as terrified families scramble to escape. People sprint down the suburban streets in a blind, horrific panic. Evelyn gathers her children, urgently telling them to get into the car. She urgently signs to Regan, telling her to go with her father. A massive, fiery object plummets directly toward the helpless town. Loud sirens begin to wail, adding to the deafening cacophony. Lee swiftly places Regan in his truck, trying desperately to keep her calm. He steps out of the vehicle to investigate the escalating situation. He frantically asks a local police officer what exactly is happening. The bewildered officer stammers, suggesting it might be an alien creature. In a flash of pure violence, a heavy police cruiser is hurled through the air. Regan watches in sheer horror from the front passenger seat. Meanwhile, Evelyn is frantically driving her car through the absolute madness. She tries her very best to soothe her terrified sons in the backseat. A monstrous entity suddenly lands violently on a vehicle up ahead. The glass windshield shatters into 1,000 razor-sharp pieces. Evelyn navigates skillfully through the terrified running pedestrians. Her wide eyes lock onto a massive city bus. The out-of-control bus barrels directly toward their fragile car. She screams at the very top of her lungs. The heavy metal vehicle violently slams into them. Lee forcefully grabs Regan and leaps out of their damaged truck. They sprint desperately down the devastated and chaotic street. The horrific creatures drop from the sky like deadly organic meteors. Lee swiftly pulls his daughter into an abandoned diner. He throws her to the cold ground to avoid immediate detection. He firmly puts a finger to his lips, demanding absolute silence. Heavy, terrifying footsteps echo loudly right outside the glass window. An old man hiding nearby begins to uncontrollably hyperventilate. Lee reaches out, firmly covering the old man's trembling mouth. A blurry, nightmarish silhouette appears ominously at the glass. A sudden phone ring shatters the silence, and the beast smashes through. The blind creature attacks the hiding civilians mercilessly. Lee bravely drags Regan through the shattered kitchen. They burst out through the back door into the chaotic alleyway. Evelyn and her children huddle desperately behind an overturned police cruiser. The young boy spots his courageous father running toward them. An armed officer boldly stands up, aiming his weapon at the beast. The monster leaps onto the officer, tearing him brutally apart. The boy covers his ears, unleashing a pained, muffled scream. Evelyn urgently gestures for him to stay perfectly quiet. The movie's title card slowly materializes from thick, brown smoke. More than a year has tragically passed since the world ended. The surviving family members emerge cautiously from their ruined sanctuary. They walk silently barefoot toward a burned-out, skeletal barn. Evelyn hands a loaded shotgun to Marcus, her face etched with grim determination. Regan insists on going back inside to retrieve crucial survival supplies. Evelyn wades carefully through the flooded basement, tightly holding her newborn baby. She gently places the sleeping infant into a specially designed, soundproof wooden box. Regan skillfully snips copper wires, salvaging parts for a portable radio. She climbs a towering water structure to light a massive signal fire. Evelyn meticulously studies an old map, searching for a new safe haven. She takes out a compass, confidently determining their perilous path forward. Regan leads the way, stepping softly on a long trail of white sand. Evelyn follows closely, cradling the fragile baby against her warm chest. They navigate carefully along a set of overgrown, abandoned train tracks. The grim silhouette of a desolate factory looms threateningly in the distance. They carefully climb over a rusted and dangerous chain link fence. Suddenly, Evelyn's foot catches a hidden tripwire, sending empty bottles crashing to the ground. The piercing sound paralyzes the entire family with absolute fear. Knowing the monsters are coming, they break into a desperate wild sprint. Marcus stumbles hard, and his leg is brutally caught in a hidden bear trap. Dark blood immediately pours from his severely mangled limb. The injured boy releases an agonizing, high-pitched, blood-curdling scream. Evelyn dives to the bloody ground, clamping her hand firmly over his mouth. She begs him with her frantic eyes to endure the unimaginable pain silently. Regan quickly secures the crying baby inside the soundproof wooden box. Evelyn's dirt-streaked face twists in deep, empathetic agony for her suffering son. A terrifying, otherworldly screech echoes loudly through the tall green grass. A long-limbed creature charges blindly and furiously toward the source of the noise. Regan acts quickly, plugging her hearing aid directly into a portable amplifier. A high-pitched, piercing feedback loop blasts aggressively through the thick air. The monster reels backward in pain, its thick armor plates exposing its vulnerable flesh. Evelyn raises her shotgun and fires a devastating point-blank shot into the beast. The massive creature collapses dead in the tall grass. Regan hoists injured Marcus onto her back, and they resume their frantic escape. They rush blindly into the sprawling, dusty ruins of the abandoned factory. Suddenly, a masked man grabs Evelyn, pinning her violently against the cold wall. He firmly presses a finger to his lips, demanding absolute, unwavering silence. More terrifying creatures converge on the factory, hunting relentlessly for fresh prey. The masked stranger carries Marcus deeper into the confusing industrial maze. A beast drops suddenly from the ceiling, landing directly into their narrow path. They sprint desperately through the dusty corridors in a chaotic race for survival. Evelyn violently pushes the heavy baby carriage as fast as she possibly can. The stranger opens a heavy circular hatch leading to a hidden subterranean bunker. They scramble frantically down the narrow chute, gasping deeply for precious air. The man seals the heavy iron door firmly shut above them. He flicks a small lighter, illuminating the cramped, suffocatingly tight space. He looks at Evelyn coldly and states clearly that they cannot stay here. He insists bitterly that there isn't enough food, water, or lingering hope left. Evelyn recognizes his familiar voice and tearfully demands to see his hidden face. She softly and desperately calls out his name, Emmett. He slowly pulls down his dirty mask, revealing a face hardened by profound grief. Later, Evelyn prepares a makeshift medical station to treat the severe wound. She uncorks a glass bottle of extremely potent alcohol. She pours the burning liquid directly over Marcus's mangled, bloody leg. Marcus bites down hard, unleashing a muffled, truly agonizing shriek. Regan sets up the salvaged radio, placing the headphones carefully over her brother's ears. Emmett watches them closely, his weary eyes filled with a haunting sorrow. He explains quietly how the bunker's thick concrete blocks the monster's acute hearing. Evelyn asks gently about the people he sadly lost. He slowly reveals the tragic and heartbreaking fate of his sick child. Evelyn asks if he ever saw the nightly signal fires her husband lit. Emmett admits heavily that he saw them burning every single night. When she asks why he never came to help, he stays completely silent. He coldly states that the people left in this ruined world aren't worth saving. Suddenly, Marcus hears something incredibly clear through the thick static. Evelyn puts on the headphones and her tired eyes widen in complete shock. A clear, uninterrupted, and beautiful song is playing, Beyond the Sea. Emmett dismisses it quickly, claiming it is just a meaningless automated loop. Regan fiercely signs that he is lying to their faces. Emmett explains tiredly that the transmission comes directly from the valley. Regan looks at him with pure disgust, comparing his cowardice to her brave father. Emmett angrily reiterates that there is absolutely nothing left out there. He coldly commands them to leave the factory by tomorrow morning. In the dead of night, Regan carefully covers Marcus's mouth to wake him. She excitedly signs that the song is not a mere random broadcast. It is a hidden message, a bright beacon calling for survivors. She points eagerly to a circled island on her worn map. She plans to follow the old train tracks straight to the coast. She believes she can broadcast her hearing aids' feedback through their tower. She is fiercely convinced she can save the remaining desperate survivors. Marcus begs her tearfully not to undertake such a terrifying, suicidal mission, but Regan is entirely determined to honor her brave father's legacy. At dawn, Regan steps out onto the overgrown railway, heavily armed and resolute. Evelyn wakes up suddenly and discovers her eldest daughter is missing. She tearfully and passionately pleads with Emmett to track her down. She passionately declares that Regan is exactly the kind of person worth saving. Emmett, deeply moved by her desperate conviction, finally and reluctantly agrees. Regan travels far down the rusted tracks, encountering a derailed, broken train. She cautiously climbs up into one of the decaying passenger cars. The grim interior is a graveyard of scattered luggage and dried bones. She spots a dusty first aid kit mounted high up on the wall. As she reaches for it, a sudden noise terribly betrays her position. A terrifying creature crashes violently into the extremely narrow corridor. The horrifying beast lunges forward, its massive jaws snapping wildly. Regan falls backward, desperately raising her loaded rifle in defense. She prepares to fire as the terrible monster bears down on her. Suddenly, a loud gunshot rings out, and the massive creature collapses. Emmett steps confidently into view, his rifle barrel still smoking. They take cover inside an abandoned station as more beasts prowl outside. Emmett firmly tells Regan he is taking her straight back to her mother. Regan stubbornly refuses, challenging him to finally do enough to make a difference. Back at the bunker, Evelyn prepares to leave the safety of their hideout. She checks the oxygen tanks, realizing they are running dangerously low. She tells Marcus she must go to the town pharmacy to secure medical supplies. Marcus is completely paralyzed with fear, terrified of being left alone with the baby. She reassures him gently that he is brave enough to survive on his own. With a very heavy heart, Evelyn steps out into the dangerous unknown. Emmett and Regan continue their highly perilous journey along the silent tracks. They arrive at a long bridge completely choked with rusted abandoned cars. Regan notices a wooden post adorned with weathered, faded photographs. She picks up a discarded doll, a haunting reminder of the innocent lives lost. Emmett looks at a photo, recognizing a very painful fragment of his own past. He gently holds Regan's hand, sharing a totally silent moment of profound grief. In the bunker, Marcus tries desperately to soothe his loudly crying baby brother. He softly hums a lullaby, trying his best to maintain a semblance of peace. He carefully places the small infant into the protective soundproof box. He carefully opens the valve on the last remaining, life-saving oxygen tank. Under the deep cover of darkness, Emmett and Regan reach a desolate marina. They spot a small, fully intact boat moored at the far end of the dock. As Emmett unties the thick mooring ropes, a sudden noise sharply startles him. He hastily turns his flashlight, illuminating a terrifying and deadly ambush. Vicious feral survivors emerge from the dark shadows, attacking them without any mercy. A young feral girl wraps a crude garrote tightly around Emmett's vulnerable neck. They string him up completely helpless in a heavy, coarse fishing net. The savage attackers slowly and deliberately close in on the terrified Regan, but the loud commotion has drawn a far deadlier and ruthless predator. A monstrous creature drops from above, tearing into the feral group with ease. Emmett uses the horrific distraction to dive into the dark, freezing water. He surfaces near Regan, and they scramble frantically onto a small motorboat. They speed away as the beast thrashes angrily on the heavily burning dock. Meanwhile, Marcus grows quite restless and decides to explore the upper levels of the factory. He wanders directly into a forgotten room filled with extremely eerie drawings. He pulls back a curtain, revealing the mummified corpse of Emmett's deceased wife. He recoils in sheer terror, knocking over a heavy metal object by mistake. The resounding clatter instantly summons a lurking, bloodthirsty monster. Marcus sprints frantically back toward the safety of the subterranean bunker. He grabs the radio and hurls himself into the narrow, dark chute. The creature crashes into the room, snapping its jaws inches from his feet. Marcus violently pulls the heavy metal hatch shut, locking it firmly from the inside. Trapped tightly in the cramped space, he cowers in the suffocating darkness. The baby wails loudly, while Marcus struggles to control his own terrified sobbing. At dawn, Emmett and Regan finally wash ashore on the mysterious, quiet island. They climb a grassy hill, discovering a thriving, absolutely peaceful settlement. People sit around a warm campfire, laughing together without any fear. Emmett meets the community's leader, a man who offers them a warm cup of coffee. The leader recounts the horrifying first days of the invasion in the city. He explains how they discovered the vicious creatures could not actually swim. Only 2 boats made it out during the bloody panic at the city docks. Emmett approaches Regan, apologizing sincerely for ever doubting her courageous plan. But the sanctuary's peace is merely a fragile, temporary illusion. Emmett spots an empty, drifting boat slowly approaching the calm shore. One of the monsters had clung desperately to the hull of the vessel. It violently breaches the island's defenses, unleashing absolute, uncontrollable slaughter. The leader grabs a terrified child and sprints toward the safety of his house. Emmett, Regan, and the leader jump into an old red convertible. They speed down the dirt road, desperate to reach the radio tower. Regan looks back, witnessing the terrifying speed of the pursuing beast. The monster lunges, tearing straight through the convertible's soft roof. The car skids wildly into the radio station's dusty parking lot. They scramble inside, barricading the heavy doors securely behind them. The leader realizes the car keys are still outside in the ignition. He insists on going back for his family, but the monster breaks in and kills him instantly. Emmett and Regan retreat carefully into the soundproof broadcast booth. The creature prowls menacingly just beyond the fragile glass. Back at the factory, Evelyn returns safely with the medical supplies. She finds the hatch locked and a monster prowling the upper floor. She cleverly uses an alarm to successfully distract the beast. She manages to pry open the hatch and dives into the flooded bunker, but the creature follows her down into the subterranean, watery darkness. At the radio station, the beast suddenly shatters the booth's glass. It knocks Emmett to the floor, severely and brutally wounding him. Regan sees her chance and bravely grabs the microphone. She holds her humming hearing aid directly to the mic. She slams the on-air switch, broadcasting the agonizing frequency. The piercing sound paralyzes the creature, forcing its armor plates to open. Regan drives a metal rod straight into its exposed, fleshy brain. Simultaneously, in the flooded bunker, Marcus tunes his portable radio. He catches Regan's broadcast and cranks the volume to the absolute maximum. The monster cornering his family writhes in excruciating, paralyzing pain. Marcus boldly picks up Evelyn's dropped revolver. With a look of unwavering determination, he finally pulls the trigger. Both monsters lay completely dead. The radio continues to hum, a beacon of newfound hope in a shattered world.